Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. Before we get to tonight's episode, I'm going to call your attention to patreon.com/consensusunreality, where you can access over 150 hours of exclusive episodes, written content, a Discord server. If you join our print tier, you'll get access to our printed Journal of Shells, which features archival and new writings and artworks. That's something really cool that we enjoy doing. It's the best way to support the show. If you only follow us on public platforms such as Spotify, YouTube, and Apple, you might notice that our episodes are a bit sporadic, but we're on Patreon every week. So if you want to get the full experience of Consensus Unreality, check that out. It'll cost you just $5 a month. And we've also got 20% off annual memberships right now for 2026. So it's less than $5 a month. I don't even know. I'm not a math guy.
That seems like a good deal.
It is a good deal, right?
I think that you should do that. I
Yeah.
think that you should always take the deal.
Speaking of math, all the science in this, the content for this upcoming first half of this episode has got my head spinning a little bit.
Really? I didn't notice any math at all.
Yeah, well, I was just listening to Hal Puthoff on some influencer style podcast, just talking about he's always pretty cagey, in and out of government contracts and intelligence work, so keeps a lot of the language close to the chest. But when he talks about the potential physics of UFO, UAP phenomena, it gets the head spinning a little bit. Some of that.
Yeah, flying saucer mumbo jumbo is what I call that.
For sure. And we're not even talking about that. We're talking about ESP. We're talking about
UFO. Oh, no, wait, not UFO.
Oh!
We're talking about ESP, remote viewing, and other things besides.
Yeah, the Pear Laboratories out of Princeton in the 1980s. Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratories. A pretty interesting endeavor. I guess it does cross over with the aerospace UFO physics research in kind of the forbidden science area, though.
Yeah, SRI too. All these Ivy League schools needed to look into psychic stuff, I suppose. Or I guess the government was contracting them to do it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, in terms of the ESP, we'll get into that, but it seems like there was a bit of openness to it. Even NASA funded the remote viewing research that Targ and Hal Puthoff were doing at SRI, Stanford Research Institute. And even SRI in its own right. I mean, like ARPANET, the first inception of the internet was developed there. Siri was developed at SRI.
No.
Lots of computer tech. I mean, if you just go through the Wikipedia, like an incredible amount of technology came out of SRI. So for even just that institution to be studying ESP and psychokinesis is kind of tells you that there was a legitimate interest in it, which is interesting when you look at what was going on at Pear at Princeton. There was way more pushback to that research, and I think that's kind of like a different institutional
It's
thing.
a West Coast, East Coast thing, sort of like out there. They're like, whatever, man, let's just do it. And back here, they're like, well, I don't think that we should. I don't think it's right. Right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's weird because the government, they can dabble in strange research and throw some money at it and be like, well, it didn't work, whatever, what the hell do we care? But I think that when there's the reputation of an institution, that has their name on the line, they kind of want to be more a little bit cagier about it. But yeah, I mean, it's strange because there was apparently there was not a lot of institutional reception towards Pear while it was going on, at least from what I understand, listening to an interview with what's his name, who does all the great interviews. I always forget his name. Mishlove. What?
Oh, Jeffrey Mishlove. I
Jeffrey
love him.
Mishlove. Yeah.
I love how he talks. He reminds me of Funkhauser.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love him. And I love his name. It's good to say. And I guess he was actually pretty involved in well, so yeah, for this episode I was listening to Limitless Mind by Russell Targ, which is kind of like a aughts looking back on his role in all of this stuff, remote viewing, etc. And he's talking about Mishlove kind of as like a pivotal figure at one point in this scene. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Mishlove and Brenda Dunn, who served as for 28 years as the laboratory manager at Pear. Pretty
Yeah.
interesting stuff. And they really did go out on a limb there, especially coming out of the engineering school. I think that you would imagine maybe that kind of consciousness research would be in psychology or maybe physics, but apparently they didn't get a lot of reception from the physics department at all.
Right.
It really came out of the work of the dean of engineering at the time, Robert John, who was very well known for his teaching in aeronautics, and I think was very well regarded for that. But this endeavor
Yeah.
of his jumping into parapsychology and the potential of psychokinesis was, again, not very well received. I think
Right.
maybe if this work was done today, I think there would be some more openness to it. It's weird how,
Maybe.
like,
They'd probably come at it through like the psychedelics angle because that's kind of like broken into academia to a degree, to into the STEM side. I don't know. In some ways, it feels like we're more conservative than ever regarding this sort of stuff, and also more open to it. It's kind of a weird moment.
yeah, I heard a great uh, analogy, or maybe just a sort of account in that the Civil War and the amount of years between that and the hydrogen bomb is less than 100 years. So, we as humans, we potentially missed a nuclear civil war, was like a
Yeah,
near miss. It's kind of incredible to think about, actually, and it
that's
tells the
cool.
story of how much has changed in such a short amount of time. And I do think that's kind of true of where we're at in terms of consciousness now, where it does seem to be opening up a lot more and moving ever more away from that kind of rational Newtonian thing. Maybe not as a society, but in terms of like
Yeah,
research, maybe.
maybe. I mean, I would love if that were true. Because, whenever I look at, what science is saying about mind, it seems to mostly still be, um, materialist interpretation of consciousness, which I guess isn't incompatible with ESP stuff, but yeah. So I don't know. I have no idea where we're headed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried remote viewing?
I haven't, although Russell Targ says that it's Russell, right? Russell Targ?
It's Russell. I call him Russ.
Russ. Oh, he's got one in already. Uh, yeah. He stresses the concept that remote viewing is an inherent potential skill that everybody has.
Right.
It's in our toolkit. It's not some special quality of born psychics, but it's something that could be taught fairly easily. And they did that in Project Stargate, which was of the United States military, where a bunch of Army guys went in there and they taught them how to remote view to apparent success.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I guess I'm gonna read a little bit of some of the stuff, because I imagine people don't really know about any of this stuff So Pear was when did Pear start? Pear closed in 2007. Um, and
That's
it's
crazy. That's recent.
yeah, and it started in 1979.
Do you think they closed because of Fallout Boy?
All right, calm down. He's getting hyped up on the joke love in the Discord server. I don't know.
Oh, I did see that. That's very nice.
Pear employed electronic random event generators, regs, to explore the ability of test subjects to use psychokinesis to influence the random output distribution of these devices. So random number generators, they also had like a giant wall installation that was a pachinko-like machine with a cascade of kind of bouncing marbles that would fall through, and they would try
That's great.
bring people in to try and influence the. It's all about influencing statistical probabilities, essentially.
Right. I remember who was that using like decaying radioactive substances to randomly generate numbers? That was one of those early ESP tests where they had to use random number generators.
Hmm.
And one means of randomness is like uh you know generating forwards or backwards based on which kind of isotope or something, all this, that sort of stuff. I remember early in the podcast, I was looking into like, we got to get a random number generator. We need this for something. And then I went down this sort of hole where I realized they're all like pseudo random number generators. And to have like a real one, they need to be like radioactive. And
Hmm.
I didn't want to buy one. That was like a $3,000 radioactive rock or whatever. Um,
Yeah, I think they did make portable devices that you could bring and test in different environments.
yeah,
You could imagine they went into some pretty deep stuff operating for as long as they did. And you can hear, the scientific details when listening to Brenda Dunn talk about it, who was, again, the laboratory manager. It's really interesting stuff. And I think that the kind of Terrence McKenna Time Wave Zero stuff certainly comes out of that as well, which is
right.
trying to calculate like a novelty point in it's like the global consciousness project essentially. So maybe being able to predict novel events. Certainly Terrence McKenna was taking it to a way more psychedelic point of view of a kind of omega point, almost like a Desjardins style omega point of consciousness or something.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know. So, and then on the other side of the country, there was SRI, who I feel like it's less scientific to not, no, not, that's not true because they were doing actual engineering and physics and all that stuff. But I feel like the stuff that Targ and like Price and, bringing in Ingo Swann, it feels a little bit more in line with like the Esalen human potential stuff on the West Coast than the Princeton stuff, which does feel a little bit more like tracking 0.5% differences in randomness, like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I know what you mean because it's coming out of an engineering laboratory. They were certainly
yeah,
trying to cross their T's and dot their I's and have it be, especially working with statistics.
right.
Having that sort of peer reviewed environment where the SRI stuff was a little bit more experimental, but at the same time, Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ were both physicists.
Yeah, they were laser science. Like the whole thing. Do you remember like 5 years ago when everyone was talking about like I don't like everything was this big conspiracy, like like the parapolitics stuff,
Mhm.
and they would have been like, oh, they were like I feel like that would have had like some sort of crazy connotation, but it's kind of just like I feel like the water has cooled on that in that pot a little bit, and now it's kind of just like, yeah, these were like some funky, weird physicists who somehow ended up going down this odd government-sponsored thing. I don't know. Maybe I've become like more forgiving of people's weird associations, but
I mean, I was thinking about that as well. I don't know if the temperature is necessarily cooled. I think there was uh, what you're talking about 5 years ago. There was an element of looking into like every detail that might sort of connect something
right.
nefarious to these things. And to be honest with you, like you cannot separate the government and intelligence communities from this research.
No, it
Like
was all of them. I mean, the CIA was asking them for remote view. Like, they used, I think it was Pat Price to try and find Patty Hearst. Like,
that was from a local. That was actually from the police
that's true. There was
department.
that police. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing.
and it was successful too.
It was. I know. I love
Yeah,
it.
Pat Price was Pat Price a police officer himself, or
Yeah, he was. And then,
so we should
yeah,
mention Pat Price was maybe one of the first psychics that they
yeah,
employed
it's
at
crazy. And then
SRI.
he was like the big one. And then there was McMonagall, who was always the one that people say is like the most, you know, skilled remote viewer that came out of that scene.
Oh, interesting. Pat Price was a Scientologist, former Scientologist, I should say.
Well, that's cool.
I believe that Hal Puthoff actually grew up in Scientology, if I recall correctly, or was a
Really?
member at some point. I mean, like I said, that you can certainly draw these connections, and I think that
Yeah.
the it
I
get
take it back. This all stinks to high heaven.
it just gets to the nature of like what is a conspiracy to begin with. I think that if something these things are conspiracies obviously in a way, but it doesn't mean that they're simple or that they can be simply understood as, this is this, or this is funded by this, so this must be this. It's a
Yeah.
very complicated, fragmented web, and possibly that's intentional. Um,
I mean, I just don't know. That's what kind of digging back into this thing and kind of when we were looking at Puharich a few months ago, I don't know what it is about.
oh
Again, this might
shit,
just,
Ingo Swann was a Scientologist too.
oh yeah, but yeah. So wait, I guess maybe I take it all back and maybe we should just look into Scientology and then,
Yeah, that usually
yeah,
works out pretty
and
well
now
for the people
the
that do that.
episode
Yeah,
the episode cuts out here
exactly.
and
Yeah.
you hear like a sort of
Beep.
a grinding sound as my bones are put through some sort of machine.
Yeah, this is a
Um,
public episode, Ben, so
well, it's my bones. I can put them through a machine if I want.
right.
Um, yeah. Now that I mean, it is an interesting connection. I am gonna say that we will put the foot on the brake and maybe dog ear that for private correspondence. No, it's yeah, and then Ingo is also incredible. Reading this Limitless Mind book by Targ has been really cool because I read another Targ book a while ago before the podcast. But kind of now that we've spent so much time on and off looking at these people, it kind of just feels like, like those kind of late career books that people write where it's like not that good and it's kind of just summarizing everything that they did
Sure.
and they're like super sentimental. It's like I really have grown to love that kind of book, especially from people in this realm. Like, damn, what am I thinking of? Who did the Andreasen affair? Fowler?
Mm-hmm.
Like he has like
Raymond
a
Ray Fowler. Yeah.
yeah, he has a book from like 2016 or something where it's just like kind of just like sitting back. I
Yeah.
kind of like
Remember
that.
the Andreasen affair.
Yeah.
Remember those black
Um,
helicopters.
but yeah, so Ingo is kind of like a pivotal turning point for the SRI psychic labs at that point. They flew him out and he was this, you know, that's another thing that's weird about it is that yeah, everyone can do it, but there are people who are so skilled at it that it almost seems like a superpower. But Targ is very insistent that it's not a superpower at all, and to look at it that way is, like diminishing of it. It's really just like it speaks to the nature of reality in a pretty profound way in his view, and so it's not something where these are freaks or something like, like
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
like free,
They're
free they're
not
not
X-Men.
X-Men. Oh,
Oh,
weird.
yeah.
Oh shit.
Uh,
That's not good.
so it says here that Swan, Price, and Pudoff, they all left Scientology in the 70s, but Pudoff
Huh.
attributed a lot of his personal remote viewing skills to his involvement in Scientology, and that kind of tracks in a way because Dianetics, obviously, um, Hubbard's experience in magical communities, it's just sort of like getting yourself into a different framework of thinking and putting yourself through a process of like, I don't know, an altered state of consciousness that would allow this sort of non-local
Yeah.
viewing. I mean, it's Targ. Basically, his explanation is that non-locality is a fundamental element of the physics of our reality. Therefore,
Yeah.
non-local viewing is something that we can all do because it's just understanding the framework of reality in a more
Right.
real way.
Yeah, it's innate to the human experience, he thinks. And something I noticed in reading this book as well is how integral Eastern mysticism was to the remote viewing stuff, which I didn't know before this. But you know, you don't get like a chapter into this book before he's talking about the sutras of Patanjali and like all of this, how they used meditation to sort of
Mm.
get into the right mind space when they were first starting with this, before they kind of came up with these more, quote, scientific protocols. So, I mean, I feel like maybe we're always kind of like really driving this point home, but there is in all of the human potential and new age stuff, and even where it encroaches on like science, like here, the influence of the East-West uh, philosophical and intellectual trade routes are pretty important. Did I say that? Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It's a essential part of the story is understanding how someone like Targ, who with Putoff and Swan, etc., like basically invented this way of looking at ESP. It comes out of his reading of old Eastern texts.
Yeah, it kind of conjures how embedded um, spirituality and spiritual philosophy is in government or the development of technologies too. It can never be separated. I encountered something strange recently, which was Alan Dulles coming to the defense of Carl Jung. I guess there were
Right?
claims
Yeah.
that Carl Jung was a sympathizer to fascism, and Alan Dulles had wrote letters to Mellon, which has a UFO CIA lineage as well, in defense of Carl Jung. And it's just interesting, that those connections always pop up. I guess some of the success of at SRI is really interesting too, and in the Stargate program as well. I guess they're said to have identified missing United States spies, Soviet weapons bases, a nuclear submarine, and they've also helped locate lost Scud missiles during the first Gulf War.
God.
Plutonium in North Korea in 1994. It's pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds so insane to think about, and I know that this topic has been labored much in the parapolitical community as well as the sort of UFO crossover. A lot of people who are familiar with that and listen to other shows that cover that terrain more, I'm sure are familiar with Ingo Swann and Stargate and remote viewing and such.
Right. Or even like looking at remote viewing as like a absurd cover for advanced uh, surveillance satellite technology or something. Like that was
Sure.
sort of a popular theory, which may well be true. Like I also wouldn't discount that, but that doesn't mean that I think
It's
that
phooey.
they weren't doing that in earnest.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. That I mean, that's the kind of the idea with these private aerospace companies developing an exotic physics. You know, having like a separate physics doesn't necessarily, like a quarantine physics doesn't necessarily mean that the other stuff, the quantum physics that was being explored in universities and the conventional academic community, is not also useful. It's just like
yeah,
like you could some people could make the case that there was like a diversion in physics that is a conspiracy, you know, to cover like the actual development of a practical physics of anti-gravitics or something, you know. But it's like the two
yeah,
things could both be going on, and one is quarantined for national security reasons or whatever.
yeah. It
Um,
would be like naming a electric car company after, like a free energy pioneer who was.
oh, dude, did you write some of these down? You really came in with some zingers.
No, I just my neck kind of hurts, so I'm
It's the
on edge.
pain.
Yeah, the pain creates. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, most comedians are in pain, right? At least at one time.
That's what they say.
The greats.
I have phone neck. You ever get phone neck?
I don't know. I don't know.
I was just looking at my phone all day, posting stuff,
Oh yeah, that'll drive
and
you
like
nuts.
I looked up and I'm like, I have phone neck.
Yeah. So Project Stargate was a secret U.S. Army unit established in 1977 at Fort Meade in Maryland. And it was a collaboration between the Stanford Research Institute and the United States military. That's pretty interesting too, because we've covered the Monroe Institute a couple times, and recently we covered the second book by Robert Monroe, specifically talking about his kind of concept of a different genesis, and almost like an Enochian kind of genesis or something,
Yeah,
and the
he was
Loosh
way more out
harvest.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But at the same time, it was a Major General Albert Stubblebine who later became the president of the Monroe Institute, and he was involved in Project Stargate. So there's, a very large amount of crossover there. And also, Robert Monroe visited SRI pretty early on, I believe in the 60s, and tested some of his, I think started to develop some of his audio technology with SRI, and also
right.
conducted scientific surveys of his out of body experiences. So there's a famous a photograph I didn't really know about, but I wouldn't say it's famous really, but it's
Well, you did say that.
yeah, that's not the right word.
Now we have to make it famous now so that retroactively you were right.
Iconic seems like maybe what I was trying to pull there, but it's Targ, Monroe, and Pat Price, which is pretty interesting, because a lot of people, when they think about the Monroe Institute, I think that sort of direct connection conspiracy culture stuff that we're talking about online, it's immediately like the CIA's Gateway Experience program, and we've talked about the CIA, the dossier that's archived on the CIA.gov website that you can see about the Gateway Experience, which actually was written by a United States Army major, but it really kind of amalgamates the work of Ishtak Bentov, who was an Israeli rocket
Bentov,
scientist and
inventor of the Bentov box.
inventor of diet spaghetti as
That's
well.
true. Right. Yeah. The Bentov box
I know.
was not real. It's like a bento box.
Yeah.
Um,
I need
weird
to hit you with
guy.
a trank dart.
What's the Stalking the Wild Pendulum is his excellently titled popular book. And he's also like, damn, what do they call it now? The CIA documents that are actually just Bentov stuff.
Well, let's see. If you
It's
look,
like the gateway thing, but that's like all confused with Monroe.
yeah,
Remember when that was like
there's
a trend
well,
like
because
a
the
year
the
ago?
major went to the Monroe Institute, so that stuff's in there as well. He talks about
Right.
hemisync,
I love HemiSync.
analysis and assessment of the gateway process, CIA.gov.
Right. And there's Bentov in there with his, and then he was making missiles.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the stuff does all kind of stink, doesn't it? Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't.
yeah,
I don't know if "baby with the bathwater" is the right analogy, but you just can't separate it. Like, it's non-colloidal. Like the two
colloidal,
are never gonna
colloidal
be
silver.
mutually exclusive.
Of course. No, it's yeah, they're all mixed up. It's like, uh, well, it's like
Well,
some sort of candy.
Einstein's general relativity brought us the atom bomb, right? Like,
Ah,
it, these
boo.
scientific breakthroughs are going to
Oh yeah,
create
right. Yeah.
opportunity for them to be weaponized. And
And that's usually how they get funded.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that's too, so that, well, so that sucks. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and this all kind of does feel like it's pointing towards the weird surveillance society that we're living in now. I feel like that is like sort of one of the branches that comes out of this remote viewing thing. If only sort of in a symbolic echo, you know?
Oh, I
Like
think
I feel
it's
like
more than that. I mean, I saw,
as if only, you
yeah,
know?
there was a great meme where it was like, if imagine if MK Ultra still existed today and everybody had a cell phone in their hand. Imagine.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
but
we're all brainwashed.
yeah, it's interesting what the Russians were doing with psi research as well, because they took it very seriously.
I was watching that BBC documentary that you sent me about ESP, and they were like, and the way they were like, and the Russians were doing very evil things with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like I don't know if they like. It seems like they were doing mostly the same stuff except better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It certainly conjures to mind the Havana syndrome stuff, because they were saying that
Yeah,
their I think that their general consensus concerning psi and telekinesis and things like that, psychokinesis rather, I guess both, is that it's something like it could be affected by a sort of radiation.
radiation.
Yeah.
You mean like from a bomb?
Electromagnetics possibly.
Oh yeah. Oh, speaking of electromagnetics, actually no, I'm gonna save that for later.
Nice.
So you better sign up for the Patreon if you want to hear something about electromagnetics.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of great stuff for the Patreon as well. I've on the side of this stuff, I mean, I do feel kind of like he's on third with the ESP stuff, because it's and even like the SRI stuff, because you really need like the scientific element, and if I start getting into that, it's going to be like climbing up an MC Escher staircase or something.
I didn't know
Um,
he made stairs.
but I've also been listening to visiting an old friend, Elaine Pagels, a book about the Gospel of
Oh,
Thomas and the Gnostic, quote unquote Gnostic, Gospel of Thomas, and
yeah.
its contemporary rival, the conventional Gospel of John. It's a really interesting one, and I've sort of been getting back into tracing that pre-Nicene, early Gnostic Christianity, and the debate over what would become Christianity. So maybe I'll get into some of that stuff, and some of the weirder 20th century conceptions of a Gnostic church
Hmm.
on the Patreon. But yeah, concerning that BBC documentary, what did you think of that? Because there was some great experiments with
Yeah.
you know putting a psychic in a room and having somebody basically blind drive to a location, and then the psychic would be like, yeah, I see a dock and a wharf, and that would be exactly where the person drove to.
Yeah, I love that stuff. It reminds me of reading that Mind to Mind by René Warcolier a while ago, where just those like early experiments of doodles, trying to doodle what the other person is looking at. I love that stuff. And it was really interesting seeing footage of JB Rhine in the early
Mm.
Duke stuff. I mean, that stuff is so interesting, and the kind of pressure he got sort of put under
And they
by
were,
doing it at Duke.
yeah, and they were studying even like poltergeist stuff, right?
Yeah, they were out there. And it's very early for America. Like, before that, I think that sort of subject matter was pretty much limited to like spiritualists and theosophists. And, England had the Psychical Research Society, and I assume America had some branch of that as well. But really, that was kind of one of the earliest academic approaches in America, at least. And it was really interesting seeing that. And the invention of the so-called Zener cards, um, how they were used. Yeah, loved it.
Which, yeah, those were the almost like playing cards for testing psychic
Right.
abilities in a controlled laboratory.
Yeah, and they have, it's a star, a square, a triangle, and a wavy lines. Something else, a circle.
Mm.
Um, and the critics were really interesting. Um, it was, this sort of that era of BBC documentary where I don't know, it has a nice air to it, but and then these like Welsh critics come up and they're talking and saying, I don't care, I don't care what happens. I'm not going to do an accent. I don't care what happens. Uh, I'm never going to believe that it's true because it doesn't correspond to what we understand about physics. And that is interesting. And, the skeptic in the field is so important, the debunker,
Yeah.
because they're kind of like the representative of, I don't know, culture at large, or the establishment. Um,
Yeah.
which yeah, that's kind of brought into question too when the government is funding any of these given experiments. So yeah, it kind of like it feels like a fable in some ways to see these things play out.
Yeah, certainly. I found that interesting in looking at Pear, because it seemed like they were being told they were asking the wrong questions off the bat, which was
Yeah,
it's kind of a thing of academia at the time. Whereas somebody like the amazing Randy, who is like a famous skeptic and debunker of parapsychological phenomena,
he's
he
kind of a dickhead.
he's always called in.
I think that he's a dickhead.
He's
Well,
always
rest in peace. But
Yeah, he's always called in to like debunk whatever scenario. But it's in that case, especially at SRI, it's like who effing cares about this magician coming in and debunking it? Like, look at who's funding this. Like there's
right.
clearly something to it. If it's
Yeah,
being funded by possibly three branches of our defense, a Department of Defense, and NASA, like, and
and the
all these,
CIA.
yeah, and even SRI and these other, technological institutions of the day as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And he's coming over like, I'll give you one wooden nickel if you can prove that. And he's a clown or something. No, he's
Yeah,
a magician.
bend
Sorry.
this spoon.
Yeah. And then, oh, right. Uri Geller is, of course, a key part of this whole conversation as well, where the,
I know.
the sort of the weird, whatever he represents, which could be Mossad, it could just be like the entertainment industry. Like, I don't really
I
know.
don't understand. I mean, as much as we've talked about Uri Geller, if you're not familiar, Uri Geller was kind of a celebrity in the was it 60s or 70s? Late 60s, early 70s, I believe. Is
Yeah,
when he
through the 80s
first
and
came out.
90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he would go on like what's the TV show host's name before Letterman?
Uh, which one?
Carson. He would go on
Oh,
a
Yeah, he would go on like Carson, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd go on Carson and they'd lay out a bunch of like spoons and they'd be like, well, if you can bend spoons, bend these or move these items or whatever.
yeah,
There's famous videos like that. But he also has this lengthy UFO history story with Andrija Puharich, which is he's a sort of mad scientist of conspiracy culture who has his hands in all these different pots. We've talked about him and his channeling group, the channeling the Nine, which is something that always comes up, but also tons of weird experiments with psychics in Faraday cages and gifted children programs. These space
yeah.
kids, right?
The Space Kids. Yeah, people hated that.
Yeah,
Everyone back, yeah, in the post Epstein era, everyone was like, "He was doing the Space Kids. It's crazy."
yeah.
And uh, and then I don't. Recently, I heard an interview. I think we talked about this not that long ago with one of them, and and they seem to have like kind of
Yeah.
a rosy memory of Puharich, even though he was involved with probably more than he should have been, and kind of I feel like he got kind of bogged down with all of his commitments to
Mm,
alphabet agencies.
mm.
What a weirdo. Yeah, what a weird character he
Yeah,
was.
he's I mean, he's got it's a very open biography and you can like I think that's kind of the thing. It allows you to enter into all these strange aspects of what he was doing and had his hand in so many pots. I mean, we
I
talk
don't get
about
it.
what
How
like
he could do so much. Like, I like am tired.
he was it seemed like
How does he do it?
in a lot of ways he was an idea man where he would go somewhere and start something and then leave it in the hands of other people.
Right. Yeah.
And kind of bounce around from place to place and work on what he wanted to work on at the time or whatever he was being pulled into.
Right. Like Brian Wilson.
Yeah. Uh, I don't think Wilson was like that at all. Wilson was in the sandbox, just playing piano,
So was Mr. Puharich. He was uh
playing God.
playing God in the piano. No, I guess Brian Wilson's not a good comparison. Maybe more like hmm. Hmm. The
Yeah, I'm
Beatles.
gonna let you figure that one out.
The whole band, the Beatles.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, where? So Uri Geller kind of does bridge that kind of that gap in terms of because he was involved with SRI stuff as well, and certainly not as much as someone like Ingo Swann, who I feel like we might have to dig into deeper someday because he's interesting. Like,
Does it almost seem like because I don't think Geller was there for that long? Does it almost seem like
nah,
they were just compelled to look at Geller because his name was on such a national radar that they were like, well, we'll bring him in, we'll take a look.
right? I think so. And I feel like people will dismiss him as kind of just like a fraud, but I don't. I feel like the deeper you look into his, especially his early stuff, his early albums,
Yeah.
um, it's a weird like there's something to it, and there probably still is, even though now he's kind of just like tweeting about Pokemon and stuff. It's really I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that they were doing it just because like they wanted to test this celebrity psychic. I think they probably had reason to bring him in.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the testimony that you read about Geller in those early days, a lot of people were quite enamored by him, but that's not to say that there wasn't some kind of glamour to his
Yeah,
personality because he was certainly a showman. He had his own element of stage presence.
for sure. It's like bringing Mick Jagger in or
Yeah.
something.
I think a lot of people too were really taken by Puharich's narrative of Geller in that book.
Uri, is it called?
Uri,
Is it
yeah,
just called Uri? Yeah,
yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yuri. Yeah, that's a good one. It's kind of like it kind of reminds me of like David Bowie or something. Like sort of
Mm,
just like a. I'm just trying to see how many '60s musicians I can fit into the conversation.
yeah, I don't know what the hell you're doing there.
But actually, that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Anyway, I think Ingo Swann, like I was saying, is he was kind of like the beginning of
All right.
that work,
Yeah.
and I think that he's like because if you read his book Penetration, great name for a book, it's so weird. Like the stuff he gets into, the sort of more esoteric end of the remote viewing stuff, not just like looking at testing it, looking at envelopes, looking at military targets. Like when you get into like the Ingo Swann saying, "I'm bored. I actually want to like see how far I can go," and he's looking at like insane aliens building crystal castles on the moon. Like that that side of it is um really interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joseph McGonigal was, they said that he was their most successful remote viewer, and he was
Right?
a U.S. Army chief warrant officer. So I guess he was just kind of assigned to the Stargate project, didn't have any inherent. Uh,
Right, like powers. That's the sense I get because there was another one, I can't remember her name. It was
that's
a
weird though,
friend
because he had
of
an
Russell
interest
Targ.
in. It says he had an interest in near-death experiences, out-of-body travel, and unidentified flying objects. I believe he's responsible for writing the CIA Stargate.
McMonagall?
McMonagall.
Yeah.
What did I say? McDougal?
No,
McDougal
no,
Street?
that's what you said. That is what you said, but yeah. Um Also we have to remember it was the spooky 70s and these people were everybody was interested in that.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, that's not true, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
No, it's certainly he was driven there not just by being assigned, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um And it really does seem like Targ built the entire program out of just like word of mouth people who might be good at it, and then just like random people who he taught how to do it, and then they became like super psychic spies. Like his friend from New York, who was a photographer, who she brought or who he brought to SRI, and she was just like after a few tries, immediately like the best. It's like
Right.
it's kind
Right.
of
Yeah. She was a professional photographer, and she
yeah,
had no innate psychic abilities.
or
Well, I'm sorry. She had no
she had the same as everybody
the
else, which I
same
guess is
innate
endless,
abilities as
right?
everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah,
But she
that
had
part of it's
none. She
very
never
interesting.
experienced any psychic abilities before that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, uh it's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's like very hopeful, but I've never really tried it seriously. Like I've never sat with like the envelope hidden away somewhere. I've never tried that,
All right.
but
Well, let's do an experiment. Write down, you know, take like 15 seconds and just kind of write down 3 words. All right.
right now, we should do this on Patreon.
Well, we'll do. This will be a short one. We'll do another.
This is
We'll do.
primo content. All
Right.
right,
We're
I'll
gonna do
write
a
down three
couple.
words. Uh, hmm.
Don't think too hard. That's what you're thinking too much. I could see
Oh
the
no,
wheels, gears turning.
I'm trying to get the word that comes first. Okay,
All right. Go ahead. Read your words.
I wrote down egg, salamander, and hinge.
Oh, interesting. Well, we're actually on something here because I wrote down apple, bird, and chain.
That's weird.
That's a food, a
Yeah,
creature, and like a component.
right.
Huh.
Wonder what that means. Oh well.
That's pretty good, actually. See?
Yeah,
We're not even trying here, folks.
yeah.
Check this out. McMonagall said that he did remote viewing as a sort of like time machine of the origins of humanity. And he said that humans came from creatures somewhat like sea otters rather than primates and were created in a laboratory by creators who seeded the earth and then departed.
Oh, Well, that's disappointing.
Do you think you're not down with that?
I wanted it to be monkeys.
Ancient aliens. All right,
Yeah.
let's go over to Patreon. Thank you for listening to our short excursion into some ESP subjects. We're going to talk about different things on Patreon. We're going to talk about Gnosticism, maybe talk about some occult encounters and expanding on some magical battles that we've talked about on recent episodes.
And we're going to talk about ESP too.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about ESP as well. So thank you for listening to this. As we mentioned, we're on Patreon every week. If you haven't been listening, you've missed some excellent episodes. Check that out at patreon.com/consensusunreality. We'll be back with some new guests in the year 2026, possibly another public episode before the holidays. But if you don't hear from us, we hope you have a happy and healthy one. And we'll hop over to Patreon. We're back on
Baby,
Patreon.
baby back ribs.
Oh, all right. All right.
Remember that commercial?
Yeah, of course. It's a great commercial. I want my baby back. That was a pretty good psi experiment we just did there.
Yeah, that was weird, actually.
It is weird, right? Especially like, so what were your words?
Egg, salamander, and hinge.
Salamander, hinge. That is very strange.
What were yours?
Apple, bird, and chain.
Huh.
So a chain and a hinge. A bird
Well, that's
and
like
a
a
salamander, and an apple and an egg.
very weird. It's almost like shape and like texture stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was the hinge. I was like, oh no, people are gonna think I'm talking about the dating app. But what I'm talking about is I was looking at the window and there's a hinge on it, and
Yeah.
that came to mind.
A chain is especially like a bicycle chain is sort of a hinge anyway.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Very weird.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on the whole ESP thing? I guess it kind of gets into Rupert Sheldrake as well with the morphic conscious or morphic fields, resonance
Morphic
fields.
resonance, yeah. It does. I don't know. I will have to come at it from a tangential angle, which is that I emailed Adam Go Rightly,
Mm.
a former guest of Consensus on Reality and one of the great Fortean slash Robert Anton Wilsonian kind of figures that we have. Because I found an interview he did with Eugenia Mason.